Live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show. Maryland father rolled up and sent to the gulag in El Salvador. If you've even done a cursory scroll across X, if you've tuned into CNN, if you've opened the New York Times, that's the story today that you have been sold. I've been thinking a lot lately about the idea of what it takes to sell a story. I got war plans texted to me 2 hours before an attack. Perhaps most infamously, the Washington Post. A terrorist is nothing but an austere religious scholar. How a story is sold, how a story is framed, is not just about framing the story, but because it's the first information to hit your radar, it's a way to frame your mind. I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and I've been thinking about that when I remembered a conversation between Theo Von and Tony Robbins.
Anything you see that's brown, people at home, look at that in your own room. What you see is brown. Okay, close your eyes.
Okay.
Tell me everything you just saw that was red. Now, obviously, you saw a lot more brown, didn't you?
Yeah.
Why? Because you're looking for it. Open your eyes. Now look for red. Look for red anywhere you can find red. Any place you can find red.
Okay.
Okay? Did you find more red this time?
Mm-hmm.
How come?
Because I was looking for red.
That's right.
Now, Tony Robbins was talking about positive versus negative thoughts that you'll manifest where you focus. But the point is focus. Focus is frame. The way you are sold a story makes it very hard to escape the inaccuracies, the lack of facts, or even the facts as first presented in that story. And that brings us back today to the story of Kilmer Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father deported to El Salvador. J.D. Vance said the following about this story this morning. He said, Garcia was convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here. It's gross to get fired up about gang members getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize. Vice President Vance was wrong in that he was not convicted as a gang member, but he was determined as a judge to likely be affiliated with gangs. But those details are totally lost in the way that story is framed. That story today is solely and exclusively in controlling your mind and the way you think about it, about a Maryland father.
The Trump administration has admitted to mistakenly deporting a Maryland father to a Salvadoran super prison.
According to his attorney, Abrego Garcia has no criminal record, is married to a U.S. citizen, and has a 5-year-old disabled child.
Can't they just say, we made a mistake? We need...
Please return this man.
Please return this man, and we'll process him correctly.
So let's get beyond the framing. Let's talk about Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Kilmer Abrego Garcia illegally immigrated to this country in 2011. He illegally crossed over the southern border. A native of El Salvador, he was an illegal immigrant in the United States. That alone is a crime. And Vice President Vance pointed out, Joe Biden sanctioned this invasion of the United States. Even though it occurred back in 2011 for Garcia, this has been happening to the tune of 20 million illegal aliens in this country over the last several years. And the victims are measured in longer wait times for hospitals, overwhelmed schools, murder victims, and the largely media ignored all of that. The media has determined that the real victims are the gang members we're trying to get out of this country. So what is the story of Garcia? After illegally immigrating to this country in 2011, in 2019, he was rolled up outside of a Home Depot. In his due process, in his immigration hearings, there began to be a debate about whether or not he was a gang member. Was he a member of MS-13? Was he gang affiliated here in the United States? During that court proceeding, those court proceedings, in fact, the judge found as follows. The DHS asserted that the respondent is a verified gang member. The respondent was arrested in the company of other ranking gang members and was confirmed to be a ranking member of the MS-13 gang by a proven and reliable source. Garcia had his due process, and whether or not you can be even convicted as a gang member, it was alleged that he was, in fact, a gang member. But from that point forward, a good 7 years after arriving in the United States illegally, Garcia claimed asylum. He said that if he was returned to El Salvador, he would be tortured, that rival gangs would, and they had in the past, punished his family for their pupusa stand somewhere in El Salvador. The judge bought this and gave him temporary protected status. Now, it's up to you and me, and I don't understand how temporary protected status lasts for something like 6 years in the United States, but it can roll at 6, 12, and 18-month cycles. Apparently, temporary includes the last 6 years of life here in the United States for Garcia. But long and short, He was recently, in 2025, sent back to El Salvador. Now, the Trump administration is admitting it was an administrative error to violate that temporary protected status. Whether or not he was an illegal immigrant, whether or not he was a gang member, he had this status in the United States. And J.D. Vance has boiled all this down, in the end, to the following facts. The man is an illegal immigrant with no right in our country. An immigrant judge determined he was a member of MS-13. And because he's not a citizen, he does not get a full jury trial by peers. In other words, whatever due process he was entitled to, he has already received. Let's return now to the framing of the Maryland father. It has to have hit your radar today. You have to have come across this frame. And ask yourself about the passion. Ask yourself about the quantity of coverage of this Maryland father. Was there similar coverage? Was there similar passion for the murder of Jocelyn Nungaray? Was there similar passion and similar quantity of coverage for the murder of Laken Riley? It tells you something about the sincerity of the protest today. Is it truly about due process? Are they truly concerned about their frame of the Maryland father? Or are they looking to undermine the President of the United States? They're calling for justice. But is it justice to return an illegal immigrant to this country? What's the goal in the end? Because it's hard to discern that there's anything other than, through false framing and calls to return to the United States, absolute injustice. Here is Congressman Jamie Raskin asking for that exact injustice.
I call on my colleagues right now to call off the campaign to impeach federal judges for doing their jobs. I call on them to demand that the Trump administration comply with all judicial orders while appealing whichever ones they want to appeal, and to demand the return of people unlawfully taken to El Salvador on that so-called plane full of gangbangers.
Would it be justice or injustice to return an alleged gang member, a certified illegal immigrant, back to the United States from El Salvador?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.